Greetings! So in today's video, I'm going to be taking a closer look at this palette from Paul Rubens. This is their YouLan palette of 24 colors. Comes in a nice sturdy box. Very beautiful packaging. Alright, so in terms of information on the packaging, these are artist level solid watercolor pigments, so it's going to be 24 HalfPans. There's a lot of info in the back regarding how to store and handle this set. Really nothing that is unusual. This is the 5th generation artist level solid watercolor pigments, so basically it's the latest version of their 24 HalfPan palette. If you remember, one of the previous version was all pink. The box was pink, you would open, this little cloth was pink, and the palette was plain pink. This one is a beautiful black and gold pattern. So with the palette you get a little pamphlet with all the color number, names, pigments, but it's in Chinese only. You can use Google Lens to translate some of the info. I'll have to check it out, because if you look here, you have a photo of someone from the Paul Rubens team with someone from the Block X team. Or, I don't know, just at a rock that says Block X. So I'm going to see if I can translate this to add a bit more context to this photo. We get a sparkly, I don't know if you can see, this paper has a sparkle to it. For the swatches, I think that's really fun. I'm still gonna make swatches in my sketchbook to see the colors on non-sparkly paper, but it seems to be they're nice, you know, watercolor paper that they also sell. So, and now the paints. So this is what they look like. They come in a tray. They are wrapped, but only with a paper wrapper that is not glued to the paint, so very easy to remove. However, there seems to be a bit of like bits and pieces of some of the paints. I don't know if you can see, there's a tiny red one here. The blue and the purple are just a tiny bit messy. You can see some of the bits of paint on the black cloth too. My plan for now is to set this all up, clean it up, prepare a swatch section in my sketchbook, paint a demo, and then I'll come back and we will be able to talk about these colors. There's a lot of interesting things from what I saw online about these, so I'm really looking forward to swatching them and putting down all the info about these, and I'll let you know how all of that goes when I come back with my completed demo and experience. All right, I am back with my completed swatches and demos, and we will go through that and also through the paints, and I will share with you my impressions. This is the paint set at the moment. All in all, the paints were really easy to use. They re-wet well, and I really had no issue working with them at all. You can also see that the palette itself worked really well. There is not a lot of beading happening, and if there was, it's something that goes away with use. So the more you use the palette, the less beading you get. The metal palette is really well made, and I think the design is quite interesting. It goes all the way around, which is fun. And I appreciate that, because that means this palette is easy to distinguish from other palettes that are a similar size. With the palette came this swatch card. So I referenced the HalfPans and the sweat card, and I added the name of the colors in English on this. Also, they used a sparkly paper for this swatch card, which is certainly fun, but might not work for some people. I also made swatches in my book, so we will be able to check that after. But overall, a really nice color selection. I am quite grateful that it doesn't have any white in it. And if we take a look at this, the color selection puts this palette on a very versatile level, on a versatility scale, let's say. If we go from not very versatile to very versatile, this one I would say is very versatile. And why am I saying that? Well, if we sort of analyze the color here, we have a neutral yellow, kind of neutral cool yellow, with either the PY3 lemon yellow or the cadmium yellow light. And then we have a magenta in the quinacridone maroon. A bit of an odd name, but it is PV42. And now PV42 is my personal favorite magenta because it is a more consistent pigment than PV19. PV19 has beautiful magentas, but you get such a wide range of variation within the same pigment that it can be a bit hard to land on the exact hue you want every single time, while PV42 is always the same. So we have our yellow, we have a magenta, and then we have a phthalo blue here, which is a perfect cyan color for a primary triad palette. If you want to go extra, you can also add the black, and then you get the same kind of palette that you would get from any kind of printer or printing device. With only these three colors, the yellow, the blue, and the magenta, you can basically mix just about any color you want. It is, in my opinion, the most versatile triad of colors you can have out there. If the goal is to work with the least amount of paints and get the most possible results in terms of range of colors, it's these three. Now on its own, the palette seems to have a nice split primary. You get sort of a kind of cool yellows with these, and you get a warm, which is almost orange, and then you get red and like this magenta, the quinacridone maroon, but you also get a PV19, which for some people will be their preferred sort of magenta color. For me, it's a bit too muted and red compared to this one, for my personal taste, of course. And then you get French blue, which is an ultramarine blue, which acts as your warm blue, and the phthalo blue works as a cool blue. So you get this split primary palette in there. And then you get all the convenience colors that we have on here. So we get an orange, an actual orange color. We get a dioxazine violet, which is a color that is really practical and handy. And it's a really nice deep version of this pigment. And then you get 4 greens that are again a really interesting selection of greens. We get a couple of earth tones, including the Naples yellow in there. And then we get a brown umber and ivory black. The brown umber is almost more like a warm black than a brown color. It's a really deep brown, if you know what I mean. And then ivory black is just black. This color selection I think is really interesting and works really well. Perhaps the only tweak that one could do is to switch out one of these yellows for something a bit different, because these are quite similar in hue, but that's about the only thing I can think of. Now in my sketchbook, this is the wrappers. I glued them on this and I will tape this in here to keep everything together. This will stay with the set. So really not a lot of differences between the swatches. They're all fairly consistent from one paper to the other. This paper, while sparkly, is a really nice paper for swatches. I think it works with the paints well and shows the colors nicely. So a bit of a rundown of the color if we take a closer look at the pigments. The Naples yellow is a mix. Then we get a single pigment lemon yellow, single pigment cadmium yellow light, single pigment chromium yellow, hue deep. The chromium orange hue is also a single pigment. The cadmium red light, single pigment. And then we have Perylene Maroon on this palette, which is a really nice addition to a 24 color palette. It is a single pigment. We get Queen Rose, so kind of a redder magenta. We get the Green Maroon, a bit of an odd name considering the color, but it's this magenta color. Dioxazine Violet. The Indigo is a mix, but it is a mix of a phthalo color, and I think this one is synthetic indigo. We get a single pigment ultramarine blue, a single pigment Prussian blue that is named Berlin blue, single pigment phthalo blue, and then we get translucent turquoise, which is PB16, which I was also very happy to see on there because it's a beautiful turquoise color, single pigment, quite a fun color to use and very transparent. Then we get the quintessential PG7, and we get a May green, which is a mix of a yellow and PG7. We get a single pigment cobalt turquoise dark, which is also very interesting because this is a very granulating pigment, and it's an interesting addition to this palette to have a granulating color on here. We get an olive green dark next, which is a mix of an orange and a green pigment. Then we get earth yellow, single pigment. Their burnt sienna is a mix of two pigments. That's perhaps the only thing that personally I was a bit disappointed. It's a personal preference. I prefer the kind of hue I get from a burnt sienna that is a single pigment PBR7. That's just a personal thing. On its own and in painting in mixes, this color was really useful and really nice, but I just find it a little less exciting when I see that the burnt sienna is a mix. Then we get the Venetian red, single pigment. The brown umber. Now this is a really peculiar color. It's a mix of three pigment and it's really quite dark and kind of greenish or yellowish. It's not a color I've seen often in sets. And finally, ivory black, single pigment. So overall, a set that is mostly single pigment paints for those who kind of keep track of this kind of stuff. If you don't really care about the pigments, it's still a really versatile, really nice color selection. You can get a lot done with these 24 colors, and I will show you what I did with them. Alright, so these are my two demo paintings. Now, I didn't use all of the colors in my paintings, otherwise it would look like a pizza. But I really had a fun time. As you can see, the French ultramarine, well, the French blue, has a nice level of granulation. I did use some of the cobalt turquoise to add some more granulation. And other colors I've used in this, the greens in general, all of them. The earth yellow I used a lot. And then some oranges also for the cats, obviously. The burnt sienna and the French blue also mixed together really nicely, and they made a beautiful neutral gray that I was able to use in some areas of the painting. Otherwise, I used a lot of the muted green you can get from mixing earth yellow and French blue for a lot of the background areas and the more distant stuff. And as I build the image to what's closer to us, then I started adding more vibrant greens in the foreground. As you can see from these, I was able to layer a lot of paint layers and didn't encounter a single problem. Not one. I did many layers for the sky here to get this depth and vibrancy. I did layers here for the reflection and to work this color out. I did layers over here on the bushes, on the ground. I did some detailing layers here, and I didn't encounter anything that wasn't what I expected. If I was to sum it up and list what I really liked about this set, first, the paints. The paints are really nice. It's a beautiful color selection, and it is very versatile, which is something that I like to see in paint set. We have a split primary, we have a good cyan, magenta, yellow option in there, and all the convenience colors are, well, convenient. The set itself seems to be really well made. I haven't used it extensively, of course, but we can see that the tin is really nice, looks sturdy. The palette is, mobile, it moves well. This is a rounded border, so it's not the sharp one you can get on some palettes, which is also really nice. The pans are all set in really well. None of them were broken, and it all worked really well together. There wasn't any weird stuff going on, nothing unexpected. This is definitely one of those palettes that I'll keep using. Please let me know what you think of this color selection in the comments below. I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts. Also, thank you for watching this video. Thank you to Paul Rubens for sending me this palette to try out. I had a lot of fun painting with it. See ya all in the next video. Bye bye.